Thanks for finding us here at Whirlwind Family Farm. And let's give it a minute here because sometimes this is a little bit delayed, so I'm going to say it again. If you're finding us here, thanks for finding us at Whirlwind Family Farm. And I rarely go back to back with live on YouTube. I rarely do it, but we're starting towards that gardening season and there's thoughts and things I want to get out there. And I think I'm going to do a long form video on this as well. But if I had to title this, it's Small Garden, Big Production. And I'll see if I can do this. Let me see if I can take this. If you look behind me, that is the pathway, the road coming into Whirlwind Family Farm. It's a little dirt path that comes in here. And to give you perspective on that path right there, it's about 10 foot wide. And the reason I'm showing you that is many times when I talk about small gardening, I'll say, gosh, there's so much you can do with a 20 by 20, 30 by 30. And I'm gonna change that a little bit. I'm gonna say there's a lot you can do on 10 foot by 10 foot. So there's many of you out there, and I had a house like this for a lot of years. It didn't have a lot of space in the backyard. And I had a couple of boys and I wanted them to be able to have as much room as possible to play and have fun, have a swing set. And the whole purpose of our having our home and not being in an apartment anymore was to be able to have that room for our children. And that's a priority. And I know with you moms, allowing those children to go outside and dads to be able to go out there and let those kids get that energy out, it's a big, important thing. So that's why I tell you, small gardens, big production. Doesn't take a lot of room, and it's really amazing how much you can grow in a very small space. So again, I'm gonna lift this up. That is 10 foot wide, and I'm telling you, if you make that 10 foot by 10 foot, and then make a row, just a straight row, make your rows. Out here, just to give you an example, at Whirlwind Family Farm, it's 1 acre, which is not very big. It's incredible the amount of production that comes off that 1 acre. But we have rows standardized out here that are 50 foot long, 30 inches wide. So if we do a 50 foot row of carrots, there's usually 3 rows of carrots within that 30 inches wide. Gives them room, gives us plenty of room to be able to go in and harvest. But I'm telling you, on a small 10 by 10, you could have rows that are 10 foot long, 15, 20 inches wide, and you can set these various different rows. So what I'm meaning is you could have one that's determinate tomato bushes. You could have one that's 5 or 6 tomatoes. You could have one that is onions. You can have one that is carrots, one that is lettuce, a lettuce mix that you do. One could be bok choy, one could be Swiss chard. And there's a whole lot you can pack into a 10 by 10. And the reason I tell you that is because what we discovered out here quickly on 1 acre, it takes my wife and I, without having to hire somebody else, just about all the effort that we can put together to manage 1 acre. And we don't really grow that entire 1 acre all at one time. We start off in the high tunnels, which is, gosh, it's barely even a third of that acre. And then we start, as the season goes on and we get past the threat of frost, then we start going with the outside plants. Carrots are a little bit more frost resistant, so we can do outside carrots as well as inside the high tunnel. But what I'm telling you is that full 1 acre, and I'm gonna walk over here where you can see Whirlwind Farm behind me, Whirlwind Family Farm, as I move this direction. And right now is the time when everything is dormant. We haven't even started our seedlings yet because we're still here in early February. Even here in Central Texas, which is Zone 8, I talked about that yesterday live. I won't go over it again, but I'll just say, go back and check out our live video we did yesterday on hardy zones. Check out your hardy zone where you're at, and that'll give you the time frame in which you start planting. But I'm gonna lift the camera up behind me here to show you this 1 acre. If you look, you can see there's 3 separate high tunnels back there. That's 1 acre. A lot of this is cover crop right now, and there's not hardly anything growing. We have a little bit of bok choy over here, a little bit of lettuce mix in that high tunnel, and that's it. Everything else right now has already been frosted down, killed, and it's lying there as thatch. So back to my original point. For those of you who have never gardened before, This is your first year and you're going to give it a try. You're going to grow a few vegetables. Make it, one, simple as possible, and make it as small as possible, because there's a couple of thoughts behind that. Small doesn't mean you're not going to have good production. Small means it's going to be easy to manage, easy to keep up with, easy to weed, easy to water, easy to be able to go out and get compost. Because your very first season, you're not going to have a compost bin. You're going to have to go out and buy some organic certified commercial compost to put down on that small garden. We buy compost out here because with 1 acre, we cannot make enough compost to keep up with 1 acre. But your first season, for sure, you're going to have to buy some. So you don't want to have a big expense. That's a reason to go small. The next reason is when you get home, if you have a full-time career like I did for over 30 years, when you get home, you're tired, you don't want to spend a lot of time gardening. So if it's small, easy, manageable, you'll stick with it. And here's the other thing I'll tell you. If you're growing tomatoes, and I think of my grandparents, they had almost 2-acre gardens. And in my mind, gardens had to have this big scale, this bigger size. Well, I'll tell you, if you're trying to grow 10 or 15 tomatoes and you're not able to keep up with it, maybe keep it watered, keep the proper nutrition, the proper compost, or if you're putting down some amendments, different minerals with them, and you're just not able to tend to them well, 10 or 15 tomato plants that fail is far less successful than if you had 3 or 4 tomato plants that were well tended after and very productive in making tomatoes. Doesn't take a lot, just a few. Now I will tell you, there's the 1-to-1, what I call the 1-to-1 harvest, and that's literally takes the numbers that you need. And what I mean by that, 1-to-1 is carrots. You harvest a carrot, that's 1 carrot that's gone. It doesn't produce again. Radishes, beets, turnips, those are 1-to-1. It's harvested, it's gone. But the things that have a season through the season harvest, like tomatoes, which determinate tomatoes can be 6, 7, 8 weeks of production. Indeterminate tomatoes, which we'll talk about that, they indeterminate have to be trellised. They can go up 9, 10 foot long. Those will go sometimes 6 months. So that is a continual harvest. Lettuce mixes, continual harvest. Bok choy, that's going to be a harvest that's going to continue. You're cutting the leaves off. Swiss chard and so on. Those are those where you're cutting the leaves and they'll have a life before they bolt. Bolt is just a gardening word for flowering. Once something flowers, you can't harvest off of it. It's bitter, it doesn't taste good. It's reaching its production stage. But things that you can continue to harvest off of, you don't have to have a whole lot of row of it because it's going to be producing for 3 or 4 months. But like I said, there's those things which are 1-to-1, and in those you can have succession planting. And all I mean by that, that's just another fancy word for if you put down 40 radishes and through a couple of weeks you harvested those, you can go back in your seed tray and keep another group of radishes going and come right back in and plant behind them. Radishes, beets, onions. Onions is a 1-to-1. So that's just a thing to keep in mind, is there's those things which are going to be harvested and you keep a succession group going, and there's going to be those that you harvest throughout its growing season. So the point I guess I'm trying to make here is, especially for those of you that are going to garden for the very first time, keep it small, keep it simple, keep it easy, and a couple of things will happen. You'll be more involved with it, you'll be far more enjoyable, and overall you'll have better success. And that's true out here for a 1-acre market garden. If we would have gone, say, 2.5 acres, there's no way my wife and I would be able to keep up with that. And again, it is, if I could tell you how many thousands of pounds of food, of vegetables have come off that 1-acre market garden, you would be amazed. And just cucumbers alone, I can't tell you how many thousands of pounds. Onions, tomatoes, okra. My goodness, our okra, especially here in Zone 8 where it is so warm, thousands of pounds have come off of that acre. So for you, and if you have a family of 4, family of 5, heck, if you had a family of 10 people and you had 20 by 20, 30 by 30, you would be able to have a lot of production of various vegetables. It's just, it's amazing how much you can grow in a small area. And I'll tell you, the other thing I'll throw in this with a small, start off with that 10 by 10, and it's your very first season, you're gonna go out there, it's much easier to clear that area. You can put down a tarp, 10 by 10 tarp, and you have, say you have carpet grass or Bermuda grass or fescue, whatever it is, put the tarp down, cut off the sunlight, kill all that grass, and it's gonna be easier to clear it. And there's the other thing. Now you're saying, okay, there's a little bit of compaction there. You can go in with a garden fork or a hard rake, a shovel. You can take a type of shovel and just go in there and go in and hand loosen that soil. And you're going to till that soil up one time, because in a no-till system, we're never going to till it again. We may fork it or broad fork it just to loosen. And I always say with soil, we just want to crack the soil and loosen it. We never want to flip soil over and dry it out, because that's killing the microorganisms, and they are really the engine of your garden. And not to get into all that right now, there's other videos where we do talk about microorganisms or what we're feeding. Whenever we put down compost, we're feeding them, because they break down the nutrients, which in turn makes it able to have an uptake through the root system, so those plants can thrive. I lived under that misconception most of my life. When I put down compost or fertilizer, I was feeding those roots and feeding those plants, and that's not true. What we're doing is trying to get the nutrients to the plants, and especially in a organic setting, we are feeding those microorganisms, the bacteria, which break it down to the cellular level where those roots can take it up. I'm not a botanist, not a biologist, so I'm getting over my head here real quick. But you get the point. That's what we're doing. And the point of this live video today is think small with your garden, small. And you may look at 10 by 10 and it doesn't look very big, but when you start planting those rows, you'll get halfway through the season and remember and thank me for this video, because you're like, golly, if this would have been twice the size, I couldn't have kept up with it. Because I will tell you, the first season that you have a garden, you're going to be dealing with weeds. There's going to be weed seeds there, because you have now turned up soil for the very first time in that backyard, and you're going to be activating weed seeds that may have been there for 30 years, and they'll come to the surface and germinate. I will tell you, at Whirlwind Family Farm, it took us about 2 to 3 seasons to just get the weeds where they were more manageable. Because the first time that we tilled that thing up and cleared off all the weeds out here in this open field, we stirred up a lot of weed seeds, and you'll do the same thing. So that's another reason. Small equals less weeding and less to do. It certainly makes it easier if you're top watering or hand watering. And those of you who want to go to the expense of drip lines or soaker hoses, great way to go. One of the reasons we use drip lines is, first of all, it's using less water. That's a big one out here, where water can be scarce here in the Texas Hill Country, and we don't want to stress these wells. And the other thing is, with drip lines, you're putting water right where the plant is, right where its root system is, and you're not putting water in the paths, walking paths. You're not putting water out on the sides, because what happens when you do that? You're watering weeds, or you're watering Bermuda grass or fescue or whatever that tends to creep in. And especially here in Central Texas, we have a lot of Bermuda grass, and it loves to creep into the beds. So all these things I'm telling you comes back to what I'm talking about today with your garden. Keep it small. Keep it very, very small, and tend to the things that you plant, and you'll have better production. Because a large garden does not equate to having large production. Now, if you have, and you're very good with this, and you have a 40 by 60 garden, big size garden, you're good at it, you know what you're doing, you've got it under control, great. Good for you, because you're gonna have even bigger production. In fact, if you have a garden that big, get ready to share with neighbors or start your business and start going to market, to farmers markets, because you're gonna have enough to sell if you go with something that big. And that's my advice, is this season, the micro garden is the way to go. Keeping it small, 4 or 5, especially your first time, 4 or 5 tomato plants, You're going to have a row, and whenever you get your seeds, you want to look at the distance, how far apart you plant these things so they can thrive and do well. You don't want to plant things too close. You don't want to plant seeds too deeply. We like to start things off in seed trays, and once it gets up to the size where they start getting root bound inside that seed tray, then we start our transplanting out into the rows. So look at those distances, and always keep in mind, remember the one and dones. That's your carrots, your onions, your radishes, your turnips, anything you pull, it's done, it's consumed. And then have succession planting right behind it. Have your seed trays ready to go where you can put your compost in those seed trays. And I'll tell you, multi-sown, where you're putting, if you have like we use 50 cell seed trays, I would say in each of those cells, put at least a minimum of 2 seeds, because if one of them doesn't germinate, at least you've got another chance of the second. For example, with our radishes, I always put 3 seeds per cell. Usually all 3 will germinate. They do quite well together, and I don't have to prick or pull one of those out to make room for the other. Some things, Swiss chard, I may put 2 seeds just to make sure in case one doesn't germinate. So I'm getting kind of off track here, but you get the point. Those things you can work on and read the instructions of how much. You can also look at your hardy zone, see the times to plant, and keep it simple. Keep it simple. You've got a rake, maybe you've got a garden fork to loosen the soil. You've got a shovel to be able to put out your compost, a rake to smooth it. You can go get you some twine, a couple of stakes to mark off your beds. I will tell you, out here at Whirlwind Family Farm, the first few years I used these 30-inch wide beds that were 50 foot long. I used nylon string to delineate the beds, and I cannot tell you how many times I tripped over those strings. So what I do now, I still have the stakes. I have paracord with some bungee on the end of it. I'll take that bungee, put it on this stake, go down 50 feet, hook it down there, and then start my bed preparation to keep everything straight. And once the bed's prepped and done, I take the paracord and everything off, and there's no lines or cords to end up tripping over. It got to be very, very irritating. So take it from me. Once you've marked those beds off with some twine, take the twine out, don't leave it there. It's just gonna get in your way. And keep it small, keep it manageable, and you can really have a lot of success with those little small home gardens. The other thing I'll mention with this, you don't want to get a place that's too shady. That's easy to do where you're cutting off a lot of sunlight. If there's evening shade, not a big deal. I know here in Texas, sometimes it's a benefit to have something that's a little bit of evening shade because we get those 100-degree days. And that's why in our high tunnels, which are right back over there, we use shade cloth, because things that are underneath that don't do well in a lot of heat, we put in those high tunnels with shade cloth. Tomatoes, Swiss chard, things like that, spinach, they do a little bit better in a shady, cooler place. And those are early season crops anyway. Those are ones that are gonna go through about June, and then we move into the warmer season where you're gonna have squash and tomatoes and onions and okra, things like that when we get into the heat of our season. So guys, thanks for finding our channel today. I'm Jeff with Whirlwind Family Farm. Each week we try to have 2 long form videos that just talk about how to keep it simple. Doesn't have to be a complicated to have a garden. Don't have the myth of the green thumb. You don't have to have the green thumb. It's just procedure. I am the perfect example of somebody who does not have a green thumb. I always tell the story when I was in college, when I finally got an apartment, somebody suggested, you need a little greenery in here. You need to get an ivy. And I think within a month I had it killed. I think within a month I killed the ivy. So I am the example of not born with a green thumb, but once you just learn the simple procedures of gardening, you'll do fine. So don't buy into that myth. Everybody always told me how my grandmother was born with a green thumb. And yes, she was very good at gardening. So was my grandfather. My grandmother was better though. And she just had that knack. But a lot of it was just through the years, through her mother and through knowledge of just knowing what to do and when to do it. That's why she was successful. It wasn't some special, talent she was born with. She just did the right procedures. And that's the same thing with gardening. It's a simple procedure, knowing when to plant, when to harvest, and again, keeping those gardens at a very, very manageable size. Again, 10 foot by 10 foot will grow an incredible amount of food. And the last thing I'll close with, guys, is that if I had to give you a motivation for doing it this year, is that if you go to the grocery store, you've seen how expensive things are. And if you can cut that bill by 10 or 15% just by having tomatoes, having your own onions, your own celery, beets, whatever it is that you want to grow, and you don't have to go and pay for it, there's a motivation right there. It's going to cut that grocery bill. And the other thing is you're getting nutrient-dense, organic food. You're getting vegetables that have not had anything sprayed on them. They're organic, they're in your backyard. And when you harvest that afternoon, so you get home from work, you harvest, you go in, you prepare it, get it ready for the evening meal, all the nutrients and taste that it was meant to have, it has. It didn't spend 4 or 5 days in a shipping container. It did spend a couple of days on the grocery, the little cool aisle there where they keep all of the things. And if you ever wonder why you eat some of those, you buy some of those carrots and they kind of taste rubbery, that's why. They have been shipped and setting for a long time and taste was lost. And the moment something's harvested, it starts to lose some of its nutrients. And by the time it gets to your table, it's just not going to have what it had 5 days ago. But if you're able to harvest today and consume it tonight, it's going to have the taste and everything that you want it to have. And I kind of get on my soapbox about that. But I'll tell you, I'll never forget my first season here at Whirlwind Family Farm. And I took a carrot and pulled it out of the ground. And yes, it had compost and dirt on it. I went ahead and ate it. And I was like, gosh, that's what a carrot is supposed to taste like. I was so used to grocery store carrots